Right, here we go. Right, bang on past, so we'll get going. Thank you, everyone, for joining us and giving up your middle of a day. It's not too bright down here in Cardiff, so hopefully we're not keeping you from the sun. This is our fifth or sixth of these in conversations with that we started at lockdown. I'm delighted to be joined by world speaker Bernie Desouza. Bernie's written 2 books, best-selling author, executive business coach to many individuals and companies, worked with many famous sports teams and individuals. And Bernie's kindly agreed to come on and just share some best practice from his many years of experience doing this on how to help you win more customers and communicate better. So Bernie, let's kick off with, so how did you get here? What's your story?
Well, long story short, I was Royal Air Force PTI for a few years, had an interest in how the mind made decisions and sports psychology, so I studied in that area. I set up a business which did okay, sold it for a lot of money and stopped working and just did a lot of studying within how the mind and how that process. And then from there, I come on this journey where I've studied how certain word patterns and how people make decisions, and we find that in business, if people don't make a decision to pick you, you don't get paid. So long story short, I use these word patterns, and I'll show you a couple of press cuttings with people that I use them with. So people like the police on conflict resolution, I've did some work with them. I've done some work with the England women's cricket team. Again, they've used these sort of word patterns and programs for their success. Do some work in the Premiership football teams, again with coaches on word patterns to help people influence people with integrity. I've done some work with, and here's one was an article with Sir Clive Woodward. We did some work with at conferences, again with influence and skills. But most of the work I do is with professionals. So here's an article with Keith Richards, the Personal Finance Society CEO. So that gives us, hopefully, people the 30-second overview on what I do. I teach people the exact words to use, word for word, to get people to make a decision to pick you. So hopefully that helps set the scene, Craig.
Fantastic, Bernie. So one of the questions I actually had in advance off one of my fellow financial planners who knew you were speaking today, and they want to know what made you sort of get into the study, apart from obviously being, you sound like you had nothing to do, so you decided to study something. What made you get into the study of language and the word patterns?
So if I hear it right, the question is, what made me get into this line of work?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I was fascinated by how the mind made decisions. I was fascinated where if you use one set of words, you got no results, and if you use a different set of words, you got different results. And I was always a big believer, if you're technically qualified, if you're an accountant, if you're a solicitor, if you're a financial advisor, surely people would buy technical skills and expertise. But there's 2 sort of parts of mind. One part is that you've got to have the qualifications, but the other part is how people make that decision to agree and work with you, and how they build rapport. And what I found fascinating was in less than 10 seconds, you could learn the exact words used for any particular skill. And then I found out in 1997, they did some research on how the mind makes decisions. And I found out, this is incredible. What happens here is people can actually make with changing the words they use, they can change the results they get. And that's what got me fascinated by it. So by using it, I got great success. And by getting great success, people asked me to share a few words. And that's really how it's developed. So I've had one coach in the last 13 years who's retired, but he was part of the group that were working with the research in 1997. And these are the word patterns he shared with me. And it's out there, for scientists, if you're bored, there's like 800-page documents on how the mind makes decisions. I'd rather just have the words, because I'm impatient. So that's really how I got involved. And that's why I'm here today. And as you know, we met through the $1 Million Round Table. But I speak all around the world, and it doesn't matter which country they are, they're all fascinated in power words which help people make decisions, whether it's making appointments on the phone, closing, building rapport, just a word you can use to get in the right part of the mind so people can make a decision to pick you.
Let's start topical, and then we'll move on. Just for all the people who've kindly joined us today, if you want to ask a question, please I'll keep an eye on the question and answer box and the chat box. So if anyone's got a direct question for Bernie, do type it in. I'll keep an eye on that. But I've got some questions I prepared, and then I've had some in advance from people who are either joining us or who are going to watch this later on. So let's start with COVID. And so how have you adapted to COVID for your business then, Bernie? Because a lot of speaking events have kind of slowed down. So how have you adapted?
How have I adapted? Well, if you've got skills, and I believe skills is an inside job with external consequences, I've just converted live events into online events. So I've been able to flip that over quite easily, and I'm coaching people. A lot of people I'm coaching at the moment need the skills. So the language is more important now. As you got charisma, Craig, and some people have. I don't. I'm boring. So normally to get business, we see people face to face is easier. If you can't do that, we can't meet people in person. No, we've got to rely on the language and the words we use even more. So my coaching side of things has gone up. Obviously, I'm not doing conferences for several thousand people, but I've been able to flip some of those over. Like we were speaking earlier, at 10 o'clock this morning, I did one for the Personal Finance Society. I think there's several hundred people on there for that. That might be an event I might have spoken at. So I've just converted my face-to-face meetings onto online as much as I can. Some I can't. And I've had a lot of people asking me now for, it reminds me of a story. Many years ago, I went into a restaurant. I was doing an event down the South Coast, and I saw a restaurant there, and I was doing a talk, and I thought, I wouldn't mind having dinner there tonight. So I was speaking at another town, so I thought on the way back, I'll go in for an early dinner. So I go in at 6 o'clock, I look at the menu, I pick some food, I look at the view, and I speak to the manager, and I say, oh, what a fantastic view. Who owns this place? And he says, I do. And I said, well, that's interesting. I mean, how long have you had it? He said, about a year. So I said, what was your background before? He said, I was a local fisherman. Now, being naive, I just said, well, I didn't know fishermen earned that much money. He said, they don't. I said, well, how did you earn so much money then? He said, it's simple. When I was younger, I worked on someone else's boat, nets, fish, etc. I noticed some of the successful people, the very successful people, in down times when the weather was bad, spent time repairing nets and the engines, etc. Made enough money to get my own boat. Then I just developed it from there. And I had my philosophy was always this: in down times, make sure you do all the repairs. So in the good times, you maximize the catch. So I always took this, and I think it's like now. Now it's a down time for some people. They can't get in front of more people as they want to. If they use this time wisely, they can learn skills and do the things they should have done when they've been too busy to do. And that just means when you can see people, you're more effective. And as you and I know, the people who see the most people, tell the most stories, get in front of most people, whether it's going to be online or not, will eventually have the opportunity to have a more successful business.
Yeah, I agree with that. Have you seen anything special that any of our listeners can take from any of the other clients, how they've pivoted and what other people are doing that has helped them to adapt and thrive?
Well, I think what's happened is, and I talk about this now, is they've had to, where people are used to seeing people, had to maybe learn some different skills technically, which might make it easy. I always talk about the 6 levels of communication to keep in touch with people. The worst, level 6, is the text or email. That's great for data, but not for building rapport. Level 5 is a bit better. You can open a letter up. Level 4 is a telephone call. So I've got people, I'd recommend getting good on the phone. Level 3 is like what we've got now, a video conference. Level 2 is a face-to-face meeting, which we can start having now. And level 1 is a meeting with food. So I'd recommend for other people I've spoken to that I've been sharing words with, they've been doing a level 4 phone call to get in touch with people. And people are in now, surprise, surprise. Sending an email with the link on for the level 3 conversation. And the highest level of rapport is to make people aware of a problem they didn't know they had. So you're not going to be able to do that with an email. So through conversations, it makes it easier. So for example, if someone's watching right now and they're a financial advisor perhaps, protection's a greater need now, there's less resistance now, people are aware of it. And depending what we're doing makes it easier. So I'm always saying to keep in touch with people. The best way is to pick up the phone, and more people are in now, and they're prepared to have a conversation. And no, we don't try and sell them anything, we just keep in touch, have a chat, make them aware of some things in the market which they might not be aware of, and that will create conversations. We've spoke about these 3 words before. I'm just curious. If you're using words like I'm just curious, it builds rapport, so people are curious about what you know, and also you can talk about subjects which is important to them. So I'm just curious, are you aware of the changes which might be involved with your particular business? Or I'm just curious, are you aware of this? Are you aware of and if they're not, you just follow up with, would it be okay if I made you aware of some things? And that could lead to business because they might not be aware of it. So I might say, I'm just curious, are you aware that people with more skills get more clients in this climate? And they say, well, no, I wasn't aware of that. Would it be okay if I explain what I do? So that's what we could use. We've got to create conversations. Emails are flat. We've got loads of them. We want to try and get live conversations. And people are doing live conversations are in a position where they're finding it where people might need business needs or might look at things they wouldn't have looked at before. And also busy people are more available now.
Yeah. I don't know if anyone can see at home, but I've actually got Bernie's words written on my whiteboard. I tried to move so you couldn't see everything on my whiteboard, but it just says there, would it be okay if? So I've always had that one written there. Bernie, to keep in mind
5 words to get a yes. Would it be okay if? Yeah.
Would it be okay if? Yeah. I know you're passionate about leadership, and I know a lot of people who are on the call are leaders in their own professions. A question came in: what would you say the number 1 skill in leadership is?
Well, it's ironic. I was doing a seminar a couple of weeks ago, and it was an event where there was lots of different leaders, and we came up with a seminar. And the number one leadership, if you ask people what's in, when I've asked people right now who are tuning in, what do you think the number one leadership skill? And this went on for an hour. People come in with people who listen, people who set an example, people who've got character. All of that's true. But the number one leadership skill is coaching. Let me explain why. In the 1920s, in America, they realized that successful people who were in their 50s were going on to live great lives and success. But younger people coming through were struggling. And there's a big gap in skill set, a big gap in leadership. So what they did, they developed a program called Co-Achiever. Co meant working together. Achiever means you've got to achieve something. So as long as you've achieved something and you want to work as a team and you've got some experience, then you develop someone who's coming through. Now, as they do in America, they shorten the word co-achiever down to coaching. So what they do is they're coaching the skills. So if you're an achiever, you've already got character. If you're an achiever, you've already got good morals. You're a good listener. So you'll have all these things there because you wouldn't be successful if you didn't. So the co-achiever program now became coaching. So they're looking for more people with experience who are successful to coach people with less experience, so they can. I'm sure you do it with your team where you're working now, Craig. I know you're developing and training people. We do this naturally, but that's where the word coaching came from, and that's the number one skill because you're coaching and we're taking people to take action. So we're not just giving them a set of skills. We're not giving them a set of instructions. We're encouraging them to coach them through that program into activity to get results. So now the word coaching is you could be a football coach or you could be a business coach. Most of the people I coach, I don't just give them a set of skills. We coach them to take action. When we take action, we can work out what's working, what isn't working, what we need to reassess. So when we talk about leadership, we talk about coaching and getting people to take action with skills and overcome things. And look, everyone knows this. No one's interested in my features and benefits or yours. People are only interested in the problems they have. So if we can coach people to solve people's problems, we'll never, ever, ever be quiet. And people have problems, so we've got to find out what the problems are. So I'm just curious would be a good starting point.
You said there's so many things there that I wanted to follow up on them, but I lost my train of thought then. So let's jump. We've got our first question in from the audience. So okay. What can businesses do to create activity out of lockdown?
After lockdown, well, I started looking to create activity now. So you build momentum, because what we don't want to do is be right. Lockdown's finished. We're getting ready to start. First, I would start picking up the phone now. And if you're unsure about what to say, there's phone conversation. We teach this all the time. What you can do to build rapport, what you can do to create interest, what you can do to find out challenges. So it's an old-fashioned skill that people hide behind because they hide behind emails. But if you know what to say and what to do on a telephone call, that would get you set up nicely. Also, I'd try and find out what particular problems that people in that industry have or that profession you're trying to ring. Because if you know, perhaps if you're a financial advisor, there could be challenges they'll worry about if they're ill. What would happen? Now, you can't say, I'm here to talk about protection, but you could ask them questions about what would happen if you didn't get your job back, or if you got made redundant, or how long would you get paid? And then you start getting people thinking about the particular challenges they could have. So I'd say right now, to get momentum going, I'll start looking at some prospecting, soft skills to ask people questions to make it easier. So that's what I would look at doing right now, and start getting in them. So start writing a list of things of the people you could speak to. Old clients you haven't spoken to, people who said no you couldn't speak to. And maybe get in a habit of the night before put down 10 people you want to speak to. Because if you don't speak to people, you don't get in a habit of doing that, people don't tend to knock on your door. So I know Craig's proactive, I'm proactive. Most of the successful people are proactive. I was speaking to Brian Tracy at a conference we spoke at many years ago. And he said this, in any quiet times, he said that successful people say every second counts. And just imagine now you're getting paid. You don't get paid until you're doing something. So if you're sitting down waiting, this isn't a job. If you've got a business, you've got to be proactive. And so every second counts. So unless you're prospecting, unless you're ringing it, it doesn't really count. So if you want to make, the average person in the United Kingdom and Ireland will work 2,000 hours a year. So let's say 10 months or 200 hours. And if you want to make 50,000 a year, you'll be making, it's £25 an hour. So you want to make more than 50,000 a year, it's, you want to make 100,000, it's £50 an hour. You can keep going up, but the most successful people make sure that every second counts. And if you're going to use that in a downtime now, if you just had 3 skills to work on, I'd work on prospecting, so you've got lots of people to speak to. I'd work on presenting, so you could do a great first meeting properly, and I work on closing. Now, if you learnt those 3 skills at a high level now, and you start doing that prospecting would be calls, networking, you won't go far wrong, because you'll have people to speak to, do a great presentation, whether it's online or face-to-face, and if you could close nice and easily, like it'd be an apple falling into a basket, ripe fruit, life would be easier. So, it's down to yourself, and the good news is there's more people in. So hopefully that will give you some, energy to get through, this process in lockdown.
So let's stay on that for a second then, Bernie. So what top tips would you give our subscribers and listeners today about each of those different skills? And what top, if they went away and practiced something and they were never to see me or you again, what can they be doing to help improve all of those skills then? Which one? Maybe pick one.
Well, let's just pick the first one, because if you can't prospect, you're never going to have people to speak to. So maybe it could be a networking meeting, perhaps. If you go to a networking meeting online or offline, that might be an area you want to work on. Maybe it could be what you say to explain what you do for a living. Now, if someone said to you, what do you do for a living? You say, I'm a financial advisor or I'm a solicitor, people walk away. So you want to have something that's engaging with people. So if people said to me, what do you do? If I said, oh, I teach sales skills, they'd run away. But if I say I help professionals to get more clients, teach them the exact words to use, you might say, well, what are the exact words to use? So an advisor, you might say, I help people make better decisions with their money. Maybe if you're a solicitor in divorce law, I help people, have a stress-free divorce or separation. So you want to have words that you can use which engage, and you want words that engage with the conversation, not a flat statement, I'm an accountant, I'm this, I'm that. It gives us an idea. So that gives us an idea of what you could use. If you go into a networking meeting, perhaps you might want to have some words that you could use at networking meeting which might make it easier. So you don't want to sound like everyone else. My name's John, our company does this, our feature and benefits are this, we do this, and we do this. Do you know anyone wants these things? Let me know. Now that doesn't really engage with people, so you might want to use some areas where people get engaged, maybe tell them a story. No stories sell, facts tell. So if you get good at telling stories, it's a great way to prospect, because people see themselves in that position. And people never forget stories, and stories are non-threatening. So let's take a networking meeting. Craig, should I maybe give you some tips you could use at a networking meeting? Would that be okay?
Absolutely.
To go through a networking meeting, perhaps? What you could say for a few words? Okay. Maybe this might answer the question. So maybe you could use these 5 tips for a networking meeting. So the very first thing you could use is a fact. And the second thing you could use is a fact. Now, if you use these, a fact, it makes it easier. So the first fact could be, lockdown's been difficult for businesses. If you're a solicitor in family law, you could say, and some families have been in disputes in this pressurized environment. There are 2 facts you could have. Maybe you could say, pensions are complicated, we didn't learn these skills at school. So once we use a couple of facts, the prospect's thinking, that's comfortable. It's not the normal pitch. Then you could use what we call a third-party hook. The third-party hook is, gives us an example of there is a process, there is a way, there is some information. Then we could use a micro story. A micro story is very easy. A micro story is, something you could, tell them about a problem you solve for someone else in a similar position. So I could talk about Craig, if you've got a small team of people who specialise in financial services, I could tell you about a story about a team I helped go from this level to this level. And then a call to action where you're going to be. So it makes it easier. So for example, I could say, financial advisors are brilliant at doing, giving people financial advice, fact number 1. But getting high net worth clients isn't easy, fact number 2. There is a process by having an event for professionals which makes it easier. Third party hook, people saying, what is that? Not mentioning my name. 4th point is, I've got a good story, here's a short version. Talk about someone who has a professional introducers event. And then call to action would be, give us a call or give us an email. So that might give us an idea. So if we're going to use a networking process, if we use those 5 points, it make it easier as opposed to everyone else who won't be a pro, just talk about themselves and their business and how great they are and how long they've been in business and what they... People aren't interested in that. They're just interested in their problems and can you solve it? And if you look, you can take it, take an advert like McDonald's, a great, they don't tell you about the end. They show a picture of, 2 children in a car seat, 18, big kids, saying, do you like to get your money's worth? Or they show a woman at work in a wedding dress. Do you like to get your money's worth? And they say, oh, McDonald's for £1, you can have breakfast tomorrow. So they draw you in by giving you facts. So hopefully that'll give you an idea on prospecting and networking to give us some ideas.
Mentioned in there about professional introducers, and I know from looking at some of the names and the people who kindly joined us today that a lot of people rely on referrals and from other professionals. So mention it there. How do businesses get ongoing professional introducers, and what would you recommend they consider?
Well, I teach a skill called automatic referrals. It takes 3 hours, so we haven't got time to do that. But the next level above referrals is professional introducers. And I think if you can get used to doing that, that's the best place to be. Now, we found that certain professions, you give them a lead, they don't give you anything back. You give them a referral, they give you nothing back. And some people they get ongoing advice fees, or accountants get quarterly tax returns, VAT returns, or they do personal tax, they might do corporation tax. So there's always things they can do. They know they're going to get set money in, but sometimes some professions don't. So you give them a lead, they take it, they don't think about the bigger picture. So we found over the years the most successful way to do this is to have a couple of events, and we call these professional introducer events. So no matter what you're doing, I speak at these events for lots of different professions. So when you get a speaker, just make sure they can get CPD points for the different financial advisors. They can get CPD points for accountants, solicitors, because the people coming there will come for several reasons. They don't come to learn about your business. So whoever's hosting it, if you're a lawyer, accountant, they come to learn about their own business. That gives us an idea. So they won't come to hear about you. They won't come to hear about me. They come in there. The number one reason is to get other people in the room to be their client. That's the very first reason they come. The second reason they get involved in this is they want specialist training, because they want to get clients, and two, to get specialist training. That's what we found from experience in the last decade. The third area is they want CPD points, which are relevant for them. Now, if you host an event, if you lay on some lunch, it's a level 1 meeting. So normally, if you have one of these events, and they've got to work in twos. So if you're doing one of these events yourself, Craig, or whoever's listening, whoever your speaker is, there's only one of me, so I can't help everyone. So whoever your speaker is, you want to promote the second event, because the second event where things happen. It's like two-legged affairs. We talked about, we remember not so long ago, Liverpool losing 3-0 in Barcelona in the first leg, but they came home and won 4-0. Yeah. So it's the second leg, which everything happens in the second event. I see a lot of people do one event and it falls over the edge, the cliff. If you have the second event, what you can do is, in between, have conversations, and people want to come to the second event. And what you can do then is you can say to them, well, if you want to come to the second event, you need to be a client. You could say that. Or if you come to the second event, you need to bring a couple of prospects outside of your... But they want to come because the skills, the environment, potential referrals are so strong, it gives us an idea. So, if you think about doing this right now, and you're like most people, you want to get professional introducers, let me explain why. If you see someone for a referral, you get 3 or 4 referrals. If you get a professional introducer, there might be, so let's say a lawyer might have 2,000 clients, maybe 150 are good for you. And then you can start working out what could be good. And then all of a sudden, you build a community. And that's what we've done in certain places around the country. We build communities where like-minded people, maybe, you don't need many, 12 to 15. And then your next event, maybe you get 15 to 20 people, and you're building a community of people who help each other. And that's where your solid referrals come from. So you wouldn't be smart, maybe, you might have not all one profession. You wouldn't just have, accountants or solicitors. You'd have a mixture. Maybe will writers and estate agents and surveyors, accountants, architects, a wide range of people. So if you have one of these events yourself, have a second event, and make sure that the content's appealing. And that's the key there. I didn't mention this earlier. The speaker must educate the audience on how to give referrals to the host who's sponsoring the event. That's the key area. The speaker must have that skill set to do that, to do it in a subtle way so that it feels more comfortable, because that's why people come to the second event. Most advisors I help, the most successful ones, work on and having that process. So those watching right now, regardless of your profession, have a professional introducer events, have a couple of them. Don't promote your services, promote how you help the prospect by getting more clients, and they'll come streaming in. If you talk about inheritance tax planning, or tax laws, or whatever you're going to be talking about, if you're an accountant, that might keep people off the radar, because they think, it's a pitch or it's a boring subject. But if they think they're going to get something from that, you've got to remember this: people will come for their own gains. They won't come to help your business. They come if they think there's something in it for them. That gives us an idea. So hopefully that's helpful. One way of having professional introducers.
Yeah, fantastic. So let's come back to some of the stuff you said about the 3 stages of how to get more business. How can you tell if clients are serious or are just wasting your time when they say things like, can I think about it, or can I get back to you?
Yeah, okay. Well, we want to try and make sure that people, is it the question about time wasters?
Well, just for people sitting on the fence because maybe you haven't done enough or you're not strong enough in your presentation. What are your thoughts on that kind of language when you get that?
Well, you've got to be careful because we're all professionals watching this video now, and as you watch this video now, you're probably thinking, oh, yeah, I can think of a couple of people. I'll keep going back, give them a few tips and help. I look at 3 areas, really, and I use these 3 people who pay, people who stay, they stay with you, and people who recommend business. Now, outside that, you're going to get a lot of people who want free advice. I know a lot of solicitors I work with, and they say to me, oh, well, no, I go there, I give them free advice. Well, no, we all know there's always those people who are cheapskates, that they're just takers. So we all know that. So we've got to be aware of that. But if they pay, that's first. If they stay with you, and they say they promote you, they're 3 key areas. So if you've got someone who's taking the mick a bit, just asking for free stuff all the time, how do you know if they're serious? Well, you want to talk about the problem you think you solve. So for me, my problem would be, say, training or coaching skills. So you're looking for a soft no. This is a great way. These 12 words will really help. So, Craig, I'm looking for a no. So if I'm speaking to you right now, say, Craig, are you happy that you and your team are not getting? I'm hoping you'd say no. No, because you're looking for a soft no. So you could say to a prospect or client, if you're an accountant, you could say, are you okay with having to put together your own tax returns and maybe making a mistake? Or if you're a solicitor, you're okay with trying to go to represent yourself in court when you'll be up against a tough lawyer? Well, no. We want to know. Now, once we get a soft no, it's easy. Now, you've got to remember, people only do what they want to do, not what they need to do. People need to go to the dentist, they don't want to. People need to pay tax, they don't want to. People need to eat sensibly, they don't want to. Some people need to drink less alcohol, they don't want to. People only do what they want to do. So if you use these 8 words afterwards, it makes it easier. Do you want to do something about it? So you could say, are you okay with your company taking you to court? Are you okay if it's a HR company? Are you okay with this many litigation cases against you? Are you okay with high turnover in staff? They say no. You say, do you want to do something about it? Now, if they say yes, persevere. If they say, well, no, or a golden one is, oh, I've got this big client I want to introduce you at some stage. We all know this, dangling a carrot's never going to happen. You can say, well, right now, if you want some information, you know where I am, I wish you all the best. Because what will happen is people will keep taking pieces off you. Or you keep going back in then after 37 appearances and say, I'm not sure. Now, I don't think it's a presentation because I think the presentation won't get people in. I think it's finding out what the problem is and giving the solution. Now, sadly, some people don't see the bigger picture. You and I are professionals, Craig, and I'm sure the people viewing right now, we add value to what we do. We want to help people. But if people won't make that decision to work with you for some reason, make them aware of the problem. If they're happy to deal with it and they don't want to change anything about it, don't worry about it. Because even if you've got the best set of skills, even if you do all the right things, they might not be interested. If you just remember this, you could do all the wrong things, but if they want to do business with you, they do business with you, if that's something they want to do. You could do all the right things, but if they don't want to do business with you, they won't do business with you. So hopefully that will give us a chance to work out who's serious, who's not serious, who's not just taking stuff, promising big things, but just want free advice. I know a lot of lawyers, tell me about this challenge they have. And that gives us an idea. So hopefully we can use some word patterns to get rid of the time wasters to make sure we can convert them into people who want to do serious business.
Okay, guys, I've got a couple of questions left, and one's just popped in my head as Bernie speaking, but we've been going for half an hour now. If anyone's got any questions they want to ask Bernie, you've got a couple of minutes to type in while I just start to bring this to a close otherwise. So Bernie, I've heard you speak many times, and I know you're a big believer in first impressions count. So maybe you can, as we're trying to secure that client, that prospect early doors, maybe you just give some top tips on the first impression.
Yeah, words to avoid, would be the one. Words to avoid. I've just got started in, or would you be interested in? These are ugly words. If you're trying to close with something, shall we go ahead with business? Shall we just start the paperwork? These are words which sound like a sale. So first impressions, you can't use that. First impressions, you talk about the client and focus on their problems and their solutions. And people make a decision early. The first few seconds of a conversation is really important. If you're unprepared or untrained, what happens? You go straight into a meeting. Say the first thing that comes in your head. So if you're in a rush, it'd be rushed. If you've had some bad news, it would be not. So you want to have sort of programs. I don't know if anyone plays golf at all. First impressions. I'd imagine you have a set club for a set ball. You don't just pick the first club out your bag. So it's a bit like when you see a prospect. You don't just mumble anything that comes out of your head. You want to have a program. The program would be rapport, which gives us an idea. That's what I teach first: rapport, an icebreaker, some words of influence. Then I'll do the close, and then I'll do the presentation. The reason why I do it in that order at the beginning, because you want to talk about yourself, you want to talk about them, you want to build rapport, so they like and trust you. You want to talk about small talk, soft questioning skills, a mini soft close to make sure they're serious, then do the presentation. Because so many people, they see the presentation, they say, I'll think about it, and really it's been an awful presentation because we've done it straight away. So hopefully first impressions, that will help. And also you can always smile. And when you're dealing with people with smiles, 13 muscles on this side and 13 muscles on this side, even someone miserable like me could find 6.5 each side. So by smiling, it makes it easier, and we're in a position where we can make sure that people can engage with us, they like us, they trust us, and they want to take it to the next level. So hopefully that'll help you with some rapport skills. I've got a little smile I use on the screen. I don't know if you can put it on there now. Because no matter, if you smile, people smile. Just try it. If you're walking down the road in the morning, or you're going for a walk, and you say hello and smile, the other person smiles back. And straight away it goes to the right part of the mind where they feel more engaged, they're more likely to chat to you. So miserable people like me, we've got to smile more. And if you've got a great smile, then it's a bonus. So hopefully that's helpful. I think you've answered as many questions. If there's anything else we could answer, or if not, it's been my pleasure, Craig.
Well, we've had one come in from our audience then. So what tips, it kind of links into what you've just been saying. So what tips do you have for the language to be used to influence and achieve a positive outcome in an interview?
A positive outcome in an interview. Well, when we're going for an interview, we've got to remember what's the interviewer looking for. So some people come to me, and I help my clients, and when I help their children, I've got to help someone recently get into Cambridge. They all have the same qualifications, so it's having what to say in the interview. You've got to flip it around. So what does the person ask? What are they looking for? Now, you start saying, I'm passionate, I'm enthusiastic, I'm hardworking. Well, that's boring, isn't it? That's what everyone's going to say. So you've got to work out what they need. So what are they looking for? So if you're employing someone, Craig, you'd be looking for someone who's proactive, wouldn't you? Someone who's got a list, someone who's used to making phone calls, someone who's going to get out there, someone who's going to come in early. Someone who's a self-starter, someone who's happy to take rejection. We're not looking for someone who's passionate. We're not looking for someone who's... Do you see? So we want to have something... What are they looking for? They're looking for someone longevity, maybe. Maybe they're looking for someone who's specialised in that area, someone who's moving in the area especially for the job. They want to know that as an employer, and we both employ people, we want to know that someone's long-term, they're committed, they're loyal, but more importantly, they're going to take on the things that we need. So perhaps, depending what the job role entails. So if a job role entails, taking data down, then maybe that might be... So just think of this one question. What do they want? What does the employer want? And that would change the way we think. If you just think, what does a prospect want? That would change the way we think. That would make things easy for interviews. Because, we don't want to sound like everyone else, talk about how great we are. And maybe give an example of a problem we solved. Now, one of the problems, I believe, as an employer, you probably were looking for someone who can do this. Let me explain how I've done it. Let me explain how I helped someone, a young guy get a position in a law firm. He just finished university, and this is in lockdown now. They did the virtual conversations, and he gave them some ideas on why he was proactive. He set up a radio station for people under 25 with legal problems, and he gave them some general advice on. He set it up himself, and he gave that as an example of being proactive. He got the job. Now, he didn't talk about, he talked about the networks he had. He was a member of this particular club. So things he'd done. So thinking outside the box and thinking what the employer might want might be useful. So hopefully, when we round things off, that's helped that particular question on employing people or going for interviews.
Yeah, I think so. No more. I've got a couple of final questions that we like to do when we do these as podcasts, Bernie. So I'm going to ask you. So, what are you currently listening to, music-wise?
Listen to? Well, I'm listening. When you say what, personal development or things I'm reading?
No, just generally,
Sorry, I've missed the question. What am I listening to?
Yeah, what do you listen to? What's in your radio? In your CD player in your car or your podcast? Your gadget.
I'm boring. I'm totally boring. So in my car, I listen to self-development things because I teach word patterns. So I'm working on word patterns. So some of the word patterns are 34 words long, or so that's why I can do a conversation like this without notes, because that's what I do. So I tend to listen to a lot of word patterns, or if I was to listen to some music, maybe smooth FM, maybe if it's late with my wife, we're driving somewhere. But and I'm mad passionate about sport, so I follow sport, cricket, football, rugby, anything that's on to do with sport. is my passion outside. My 12-year-old, and we both got 12-year-olds, he's currently at a football academy, on trial there for 8 weeks since the lockdown finishes. He's a good little cricketer too, and we play a bit of golf. So that's the sort of things I do and listen to and do in my spare time. I hope that's helped. And Craig, thanks for the opportunity to share some tips and techniques to your listeners.
No, thank you, Bernie, for joining us. So final question, Bernie, because I like to always finish with this question. What's the best book you've read this year?
Right. We just finished writing a book, so I've been doing more writing than reading, but...
maybe not this year then. Maybe the best book that our readers should go and get. Maybe
How to Win Friends and Influence People is a book I read on a regular basis, because I just think, Dale Carnegie's book, I just think for me, is like a simple, easy to read book, and I highlight in so many places. And here's a tip for people who aren't great readers: when you read a book, highlight it, write a sentence if you can, about that chapter, and then if you've got 12 chapters in the book, you've got 12 sentences, and that'll give you an overview on the book. So that gives us an idea, because a lot of books full of fluff. So I just try and work on books which give us an idea of dealing with people. So How to Win Friends and Influence People is a fantastic book. It's a particular favourite of mine. So I hope that's helpful, Craig.
So where can people find you then, Bernie? For those who are still plenty with us, where can they find you? Where can they get your books? Where can they see you speak?
Just go on a website, www.berniedesouza.com, or email me on bernie@berniedesouza.com. My details are around, or just Google it, and if I can help anyone, it'd be my pleasure.
Fantastic. Do you want to just give the titles of your two books, Bernie? I can't remember off the top of my head.
Okay, there's one book, actually one book's just come out this week, which might be interested if someone's a speaker coach or a mentor or trainer. It's called How Speakers, Trainers and Coaches Get More Clients. That's a simple book. Three of us wrote it, one friend of mine in Australia and one in America. That's a great book for people who want bookings, paid bookings, for those people who are speakers or trainers or coaches. How to Get Yes Decisions is the best one for solicitors. That's a simple book, for financial advisors, How to Get Yes Decisions. And one for all professionals would be, it's a simple read, Stop Selling and Get Clients. They're 3 books which might be useful. But if you go on the website, there's audios, because I know a lot of people would prefer an audio. There's audio downloads you can pick up as well. And there's 12 free videos. We do it's a minute long, which is free. So if anyone emails me, you want access to free videos, I'll send those to you as well, which would be my pleasure.
Fantastic. Thank you for those. Thank you again to Bernie, and much appreciated. Great to see, great stuff in there. For those of you still with us, we're going to be sharing this on LinkedIn and our podcast over the coming weeks. So please do share it with your networks. And if you need anything, my details, and obviously email Bernie. And if you need anything direct from him, thank you for joining us. And we'll look forward to seeing you again when we do this again.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, Bernie. Right, let's wait till everyone goes. I mean, you can just... a couple of people saying, thank you so much for excellent presentation. Thanks very much. I am inspired. That's what we like to hear.